through New England. The result for the resident population is that the estimates vary between 70 and 80% now have a form of mycobacterium. This is the kind of fish tuberculosis. So the resident striper population in the Chesapeake is dying. Now, I had read about this. I had interviewed people. I'd seen pictures of sick fish and so forth, but I decided I should, do some on-the-spot research. I went down there. I went out with Jim Price, who's a real hero in this story, fifth-generation waterman who first discovered the link between the starving stripers and the lack of menhaden. Went out in his boat with two people from Maryland Department of Natural Resources, and we did catch stripers. Take a look at the stripers. We were mainly catching males. The size limit for catching down there is 18 inches. And I can't tell you how disgusting this was. I had never seen fish look like this. These fish had red sores as their bodies were being eaten from inside out by this mycobacterium. It was one after another. I was looking at these fish, and it was truly disgusting. I finally caught a 34-inch fish. If it was a big fish, well, we get 34-inch fish up here. But, and I looked at it, I didn't see any sores. I said, well, I guess this is a healthy fish. Then I took another look at this fish. It was pathetically skinny. I mean, we don't see fish like this up here. So I got the picture of what the Chesapeake has become. I think in order to really get a clear understanding of this, we do have to go into some history. I spoke about a year ago at Virginia Institute of Marine Science, and this science that's being conducted there, much of that science is ridiculous. I mean, they are so locked in to their quantitative methods that they are not looking at evidence that they should be looking at as scientists. As I said to them, of course, if I'm going to write a book about this, I've got to understand the science. I've done my homework. I've read the scientific literature, interviewed scientists. I need to understand that science. I said, but you people, I said to these scientists, I said, you need to know your history, because you cannot understand this without knowing the history. Because for one thing, I mean, they're talking about, and this is ASMFC, what is an unfished population? Well, they have to look and figure out, what are we talking about historically? What is the history of this industry? And you need to get the knowledge from people who fish. Because if you're going to be good at fishing, you're going to have to be another kind of scientist. I know. I mean, most of you people are surf fishing, which I guess is sort of at the apex of the scientific fishermen among fishermen. But when G. Brown Good did this research back in the 1870s for this 1880 book, he did that kind of research. He actually solicited information from everybody who had contact with menhaden, commercial fishermen, recreational fishermen, lighthouse keepers. I mean, everybody, and he synthesized all that information. He gathered, because there are all those eyes that are out there observing. You cannot disregard that evidence. So I made this pitch to them and say, ultimately you're doing bad science if you're not aware of the history. And the history, I guess, the first fact of the history is the question of abundance. And some people, sometimes I guess it's because things get normalized. We get used to such a reduced population. So someone will see a school of menhaden, say, wow, there's a lot of menhaden out there. There are some acres of menhaden. Acres of menhaden, that's a tiny little remnant of the historical population. When we're talking about the historical population, we're talking about many, many miles of fish. For example, Maine, which doesn't even get schools of fish anymore because the range of this species has shrunk so much. Maine was one of the biggest fisheries, and when the Menhaden were in their southern migration from Maine, the vanguard would be reaching Cape Cod, while the rear guard hadn't left Maine, and this was 40 miles wide, solid fish. Very often we're talking solid from the surface to the bottom. That was abundance. Right here, New York Harbor. This is where we get our name bunker. You know, the Dutch. I grew up in Brooklyn. Another Dutch name. They thought this fish, Menhaden, was the Mars bunker that they were familiar with back in Holland, which is why they called it Mars bunker, which became bunker. And we have accounts from them. They even wrote poems that included Mars bunker. But we have accounts and we have pictures that they drew of New York Harbor. New York Harbor filled with bunker, all kinds of game fish chasing the bunker in New York Harbor, and whales and porpoises. There are pictures of this that they drew showing these whales and porpoises, with birds, of course, attacking from above. That was New York. Solid with bunker. They call bunker. When John Smith was exploring the Chesapeake over 400 years ago, he sailed through solid schools of Menhaden. The schools were so solid that his crewmen were out there trying to catch them with frying pans, and that water was crystal clear because of the presence of the Menhaden. So that's the historical starting point that we have to understand.